a sour face, and she says, "My husband is a Roman count with a great deal of money and no chin. He collects enamels and boys, and if he does not mind that I lie in the bed of the Marchese de Alice, do you think he cares spit about my painting, as long as I don't publicly acknowledge my sad little commissions and drag down his ancient name? Or piss on the altar at St. Peter's during the Pope's Mass? That would be nearly as scandalous. I am sorry, sir, I have shocked you, a fine Spanish gentleman such as yourself, but this is how we Roman courtesans learn to speak. Anyway, no one bothers to stop me from painting. Alice thinks it amusing, like a monkey taught to dance for a grape. I ask, then why do you do it? Because I love it. It gives me pleasure to make a world appear upon a white canvas, which I can order as I will. You must understand this. Must I? Of course, painting as you do. You must love to paint. I said, I love my honor, my kin, my king, and my church, and as for painting, I paint as I breathe and eat. It is how I live and make my place in the world. Had I been born a Marquess, I might never have lifted a brush. She stared at me as if I had said something coarse. That is remarkable. I know many painters and sculptors, Bernini, Poussin, Gentileschi. I know Gentileschi's work, I said. The best of the Caravaggisti, I think. That is the father. I was speaking of the daughter, also a painter. Quite aged now, but I knew her when I was a girl. She helped corrupt my mind, as my husband tells me. In any case, it is common for painters to seek to outdo one another. They bring passion to their desire to excel in their art, to confound their rivals. And have you none of this passion, Don Diego? I have no rivals, I say. And she laughs and says, forgive me, sir, I forgot for a moment you are Spanish. Don't we in Italy send our perfumers to Spain to collect your night soil? It would not dare to stink of anything but violets. The senora will have her joke, I say, but I do not care to be the butt of it. I wish you good day, senora. I make to bow out, but she gives a little, "Oh," and dashes forward and places her hand on my sleeve. I can feel the warmth of it through the cloth. "Please, please," she cries out, "let us not part so. Of all the men now in Rome, you are the one I most wish to meet, and now I have spoiled it all. Oh, Madonna, you have no idea, sir. When your painting of the black man was on display at the Pantheon, I went every day. I wished to fall on my knees and worship it, as they did in ancient times when the Pantheon was a temple of the pagans. It is the greatest portrait ever seen, sir. Every painter who saw it desired to cut your throat, and you just brought it into being out of, what, pure spirit? Any cardinal in Rome would have weighed you out in gold for such a promise of immortal fame, and you did it for a slave? It is the greatest stroke of bravura this age." Her hand still in my arm, and I wish to go now, but I also wish her to leave her hand there. And now I recall what the Marquess has demanded, and I almost tremble. I do tremble as I say, "You are kind, senora, but we have arrangements to make, I believe." "Yes," she says, "my painting. Obviously my face cannot be seen, or it must be disguised. Is Venus ever masked? I have never seen her so depicted, but we will arrange something, I am sure." "Certainly. You are at the Villa Medici, are you not? Perhaps the second hour after noon would be the most discreet. All Rome is sleeping then. Let us start tomorrow." I think of my pocketbook and all my tasks and appointments. "Impossible. Not tomorrow, senora, nor the next day, I'm afraid. A week from tomorrow, perhaps?" "No, it must be now," she says. "Alice is like a great baby, and now his mind is set on this Venus of me. He is dismissing me, or will in the next few weeks, as you will observe when we descend to the salon in a moment. He is besotted with the Contessa Emilia Odescalchi, who is more beautiful than I am, and more stupid, both desirable traits in a mistress. He will palm me off on one of his train to salve his conscience, but before that he wishes a souvenir of our liaison, and this is your painting. And don't imagine that it will be just one painting, so you must begin now. Nor should you suppose he will accept excuses. Alice is vicious, but he is not a fool, and you will not want to displease him, for you are not a fool either. You do not need his enmity in the courts of Madrid." I cannot recall the remainder of that day. I attended my lord for some time at his palazzo, and drank more wine than I am used to. I returned to my rooms and slept badly. More dreams of Rome transformed into hell. Thank God I can remember little of it but the roaring and the stench, or else I would paint like that flamenco the late king favored, Geronimo Bosco, who they say was driven mad by his visions of eternal torment. The next day I send boys out with letters to those I cannot see at the time I have appointed. Yet I must go out myself to the foundry shop where they are casting my Laocoon. Such begging I did to gain permission from His Holiness and the Camerlengo. The bribes dispensed. I must be there to ensure it is done correctly, and then I must rush to return in time to meet this accursed woman, driving as fast as we dare through a cold rain. This Roman winter makes my bones ache. The bells are striking twice as I enter the villa. The place is still silent as a tomb for the siesta. I set up my easel and prepare my paints. There is no time to fetch a proper gilt mirror, so I have Pareja bring the plain one from the room the servants use, and then dismiss him and the other boys, arrange a red drape behind the couch, and cover it with a linen sheet. There is a canvas already primed that I was going to use for another view of the gardens, but it will do. When all is ready, I wait, for of course the woman is late. Who can count on a woman to be anywhere at the hour? Then a knock, and she is here, dressed in a heavy black velvet cloak to the floor, hooded and masked, a silk scarf of pale green about her neck. She removes the mask, throws back her hood. She has tied up her hair on top of her head in imitation of the Venuses of Titian and Carracci, and of the Medici Venus. I mean the famous statue that is the root of all art devoted to the female form. We speak a little, the weather, the cold. She apologizes for her lateness, and then we stand dumb. I have never painted a woman of rank, nude, from the life. There is no precedent. Manners are no guide. She gestures to the couch. Shall I be a reclining Venus there? If you please, Senora, I say. And there is your mirror. She walks over and looks at it. Not a mirror for a goddess, I think. And it is a wall mirror. How am I to gaze at my beauty while reclining on your couch? I am ashamed I have not thought of this, and I am mute with embarrassment. She says, if you had a Cupid holding it at her feet, propped up on the couch, she could lie on her back and gaze. You could paint in the child later. I agree this is worth trying. I croak, in fact, my throat is so dry. I say, you may undress behind that screen. I don't need your screen, she says, and takes off her cloak. Beneath it she is all alabaster skin, not a stitch on her. May I spread my cloak and lie on it? It is cold in this room. Will it spoil your colors? No, please, I say, stammering. I turn my back to take up my palette and brushes, and when I again look to the couch, she is lying on her back, relaxed, her thighs lolling open, revealing the dark curls at her groin and a tiny sliver of pink sex. How shall I arrange my limbs, Don Diego? Shall I have my hand here like Titian's Venus, covering myself modestly, and the other hand behind my head like this? Yes, I say, that's good. Turn your head a little toward the mirror. Some adjustments of that damn mirror follow. Leaning over her, I can smell her, some dense perfume. I'm sweating like a Seville porter. When I pick up brush and palette, my hand shakes. I begin to block in the forms in gray ochre. I can see her looking at me in the mirror, amusement in her eyes. The mocking whore. I stop and put down the palette. What is wrong, Don Diego? The pose. It's awkward with you on your back like that. The line of your neck is clumsy, and similar nonsense. But the fact is that I can neither bear to stare at her sex nor ask her to close her legs, and so I say, roll on your right side. You wish to take me from the back, then? I ignore the coarse wit and say, yes, there is a statue I like, an antique hermaphrodite at the Villa Borghese. I'm having it cast in bronze for His Majesty, which shows the back very well. And there is Annibale Carracci's Venus with satyrs, which shows the woman from the back as well. I think it would suit in this case. And similar babble, until she rolls slowly over and I adjust the black cloak, and the white linen showing through on both sides of this, and also a wisp of her green chiffon scarf. And now I need not stare at her breasts, and their brown buds, stiff with the chill, and the darker pink of her clam, and I can paint the line of her back with just a little more adjustment. If it were a boy or a man, I would simply shift the limbs or head with my hands. But now it is like painting the king. I must ask for small, important movements. The lower leg thrust a little forward, so the mass of her upper ham falls naturally, and the lower is compressed, and between them the light just striking that thin fold of flesh. Yes, my lord the Marquess will like that. I'll make sure that shows. A tiny carmine lamp at the gates to paradise. It is winter, there is little light left, and at 4 or so we stop and she wraps herself in the cloak again. She sits on the couch with her knees up like a little girl. The woman has no shame at all and yet is not degraded by it. We agree to meet tomorrow, but earlier this time so as to catch the light.